A maze of tunnels has been discovered beneath the grounds of Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, but they were not dug by prisoners who were attempting to escape. Archaeologists have theorised that the tunnels and other buried caverns were constructed as part of a Civil War era military fortification. The San Francisco Gate reported that a team of scientists used ground-penetrating radar and earth laser scans rather than spades and brushes to reveal what lies beneath the prison. They also examined historical photographs to contrast what the high-tech scans discovered with archival records. The archaeologists found well-preserved buildings, subterranean ammunition magazines, and underground passages lying just below the island prison. Historians believe that construction workers didn't demolish what was already built on the land, but rather just built on top of them. The recent history of Alcatraz Island started in 1775 when Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala sailed into San Francisco Bay and charted the land in its waters. He named one of the three islands Alcatrazes, meaning Island of the Pelicans, which eventually became anglicised to Alcatraz. According to the history of Alcatraz recorded by the Bureau of Prisons, the land was officially allocated by the federal government in 1850 for the purpose of a military reservation. When designated as a military fortification in the Civil War, creating a natural defence using the island's rocky waterfront, brick buildings were established to house at least 200 soldiers for up to a 4-month siege. The government ensured it was the most fortified military garrison on the west coast, with over 100 cannons positioned on the island. By the late 1850s, it was being converted into a prison, and Fort Alcatraz became the official military prison for the west coast over more than a century. From 1909 to 1911, military prisoners detained on the island built the new penitentiary, a huge concrete cell block to replace the Army's citadel, which had been demolished. It was first known as the Pacific branch of the US Disciplinary Barracks for the US Army, now called the Rock. In the 1930s, the Federal Bureau of Prisons assumed control, with the earliest federal prisoners being transported to the island in the mid-1930s. The complex was designated as a maximum security, minimum privilege prison to accommodate the country's most notorious inmates, which have included the likes of Al Capone and the infamous Birdman. During their incarceration at the Rock, prisoners were granted only 4 rights: food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. They had to earn other privileges like visitation entitlements, working, and use of the library. Generally, after 5 years, and when a prison was no longer considered to be a threat in a standard prison, he would be transferred back to another federal prison. The last prisoner departed the Rock in 1963. Archaeologists are now planning to investigate the subterranean structure that have been hidden for over a century to unearth what other mysteries may be submerged beneath the prison. Civil War tunnels. The Union has left evidence of impressive tunnel building skills, having ambitiously tunneled 511 feet to reach the Confederate lines during the siege of Petersburg, Virginia in 1864. Uniquely for this Civil War battle, they had detonated a massive explosion that left a 170 by 200 feet crater underneath the Confederate lines and invaded their defences in a failed attack known as the Battle of the Crater. However, the Confederates began to worry that Union forces might again inflict an assault from underground and responded by constructing tunnels called countermines to detect Union excavations. An early map researched by a group called the Petersburg Project shows the role Confederate countermines played at Petersburg. The map from the Library of Congress, viewed in conjunction with battlefield archaeology and laser images, shows up the precise locations of many Confederate tunnels. It shows one of the earliest known Union surveys of the battlefield and indicates the position of General Lee and his troops during the advance on Fort Stedman on March 25, 1865. The locations of forts, defences and railway tracks are clearly seen, while it's now thought that in some cases the thinly penciled lines represent tunnels. This intellectual leap was had to be made after the project team found accounts of Confederate countermines at Petersburg that appear in the official government history of the Civil War entitled The War of Rebellion. The researchers focused the study of Confederate countermines in an area of the battlefield known as Grace's Salient. This was where the Confederates detonated some of their own countermines on July 31st, 1864, to sabotage extended Union trenches called saps from where sharpshooters operated. A breakthrough occurred when the researchers compared the 1865 map with laser images which highlighted impressions in the land, matching the outlay of the tunnels on the map. With that kind of backup, the researchers were convinced that they'd found the Confederate tunnels at Grace's Salient. Other discoveries of Confederate tunnels at Petersburg have been made by chance. In one case, a mule drawing a plough vanished into a hole, and in another, a tunnel was uncovered during a construction work in the 1970s. The protracted siege of Petersburg started on June 15, 1864, and continued to April 2, 1865. It played out some 25 miles from the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, ultimately costing around 70,000 lives. The siege was a pivotal chapter in the war and foreshadowed the downfall of the Confederacy, which was forced to surrender a week later. Although long past, the complexity of these events as revealed by the underground tunnel maps suggests still much to rediscover about this momentous time in American history.